Shalom. Kol Holo Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Raha Hakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. My name is Barad Ball, coming to you from the GMS camp of Indianapolis. And to all those listening and learning, to you, I say Shalom, especially to so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. Today is a delivery service update. Did a cautionary tale on the lady from Guatemala, 32 years old, who her and her husband went to the wrong home of um, a man in Whitestown, Indiana, and as a result, she was unalived by said man. And of course, from the looks, of it, is an Edomite, so-called white man. And of course, I'm gonna play the video. It's got a few scriptures, couple scriptures, and from that point, just we'll see, how the results are coming about. One thing I will say, the thing that has come to mind is that the Lord, Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 7, speaks about how these curses shall fall upon the enemy. And what I mean by that is part of the things in which they put their hands to do, the devices, things in which they would think to be fruitful, um, the Lord is going to come against. At one point in time, Israel, like he made mention that all the things that we would put our hands to do, would not go well. And so, of course, um, in times past, you'll see in this video that many of these things would happen, and they would use the law, to as their backing, and they would do certain things in order to play into the law, and they would pretty much get away with it. And so the Lord is now exposing, Edom and all the wickedness that they're doing. We see that, so I'm just speaking as a man as to, what this man may have done. I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. I've been doing a lot of talking already. Pull out a few scriptures, and maybe the thought will come back even fuller as this plays. Here we go.
Breaking news out of Indiana, where a house cleaner was shot and killed after showing up at the wrong house. Let's go to our breaking news correspondent, Chanel Call, who's been following this case from the CBS newsroom. Chanel, what are the updates on the case today?
Well, Liz, a big update coming from the county prosecutor of this case today. In Indiana, they have now charged the Indiana homeowner, 62-year-old Kurt Anderson. He's been booked and charged with voluntary manslaughter. He is now being held without bail. The prosecutor in this case, Liz, Kent Eastwood, today during that press conference this afternoon, acknowledged that Indiana does have some pretty strong protections for self-defense, but also made it a point of mentioning that in his view, those protections don't actually apply here. Listen.
It is vitally important for the citizens of Boone County to understand that our decision today in no way should be interpreted as a challenge to Indiana stand your ground law or a person's right to self-defense. We respect those laws, believe in those laws, and will uphold those laws. Based upon the particular evidence and circumstances of this case, we have determined that Kurt Anderson's actions do not fall within the legal protections provided by the Indiana Stand Your Ground law. This case is not about undermining the law, it's about applying the law to the facts of this case, and that is what we intend to prove at trial.
Now, Liz, just to remind you what had happened here, this fatal shooting happened on November 5th in an Indiana suburb. Police say that this husband and wife who worked as house cleaners accidentally showed up to the wrong address. They didn't go into the home. They were standing outside of the home, and that's when shots began to be fired from inside the house. The woman in this case, Maria Florinda Rios Perez, She was killed by the time police arrived. She had already passed away. This is somebody who was a 32-year-old Guatemalan immigrant, a mother of 4. And families, Liz, say that she died in her husband's arms after she was fatally shot in the head. Now, today, prosecutors are saying this kind of case is very rare. They also made it a point to say that Anderson has no affiliation with any local police department. This afternoon, we're also getting reaction from Anderson's attorney responding to this news of this voluntary manslaughter charge on social media. I want to show you that statement. Part of it here says, quote, "I look forward to proving in court that his actions were fully justified by the Castle Doctrine provision of Indiana's self-defense law." Remember, I told you about that off the top. That law, he says, allows a person to use reasonable force, including deadly force, if he reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent an unlawful entry into his home. So the big question here in this case that jurors will have to ask themselves, Liz, is was this lethal force necessary in this case? We know that the initial hearing is scheduled for this Friday.
Such a
All right. So, several things. The fact that they even made a mention that he's not connected with any law enforcement. That kind of came out. It seemed like it came out of nowhere, but we'll see further. But in any case, uh, from a previous video, it was said that they showed up to the door and he called the police. And after about 5 minutes after the call, that's when shots went out. And so the whole stand your ground, um, you know, the door was locked and he was behind the door. So of course, as I mentioned in the previous videos, there's things um, that could have been done, prior to um, to actually show, that he was really standing his ground, but he's behind the door when the shots went out. And of course, more evidence, as you can see, as they went and seen that they needed to prosecute. In this case, it went national news. So a lot of people are, eyes have seen this, and they want to see if there's some form of justice that's going to come out of this. And of course, it could be a situation that, if he was to get off, that could cause a stir, you know. But then it also, on the other end, if he gets convicted, then that could possibly cause a stir as well. So, um, but we're looking on. This is what I did a chat GPT, not just just to ask information of voluntary manslaughter. That's what they mentioned. It says is a legal term used in many jurisdictions to describe the killing that would otherwise be considered murder, except that certain circumstances reduce the defendant's level of culpability. Okay, core idea: voluntary manslaughter is a intentional killing, one committed with conscious disregard for life, but it's committed under conditions that mitigate the offender's blame. So he's saying that they were coming in to rob or steal. He felt threatened that they were coming in to steal, to burglarize his home. Um, so um, it says killing in the heat of passion. You can see that there. You can pause and read. All right. Impact in imperfect self-defense. Says honestly but unreasonable belief they needed to use deadly force. So it's one of those situations like, um, did you really need to use deadly force? Right? You called the police. Was there a scream made out loud? Was there any intent to, um, make noise or something prior to? You know, maybe did you stay on the phone with the police the whole time while, um, after the call that was made? It says no prior intention or premeditation. Voluntary manslaughter is distinguished from murder because there is no malice, afterthought, or pre planning. Okay, so I thought about that because I pulled up this premeditated. Okay, um, premeditated is characterized by full conscious, willful intent and a measure of forethought and planning. Okay, so yeah, now you have to consider, if this was a situation that it came to the home, and could it been for that small bit of time them pulling up to the home, uh, and him seeing that they're coming to the wrong home, him then making a call to the police, um, and then 5 minutes or so after gunshots rang out, could that have been that short span of time a situation where it could have been premeditated? So um, because when you think premeditation, you're thinking that you've planned this for long periods of time, and though that short window of time from the time that the van pulled up, or the truck, from the time they went to the man's home, time that the police was called, to the time that the, the man, of the wife who was unalive, going back to the vehicle, the shots being ranged out, and then him coming back holding his wife, and she, passed in his hands, you know, somewhere in that bit of split time, could there have been a thought of, oh man, it's wild? Because, and the reason that we say that, because again, the devil, Esau Edom, he is very deceitful. He's very crafty in how he moves. And just the thought of me bringing that up, a lot of people wouldn't think that could even remotely be a possibility of a so-called white man in his 60s living in a affluent neighborhood, would think of such things and actually commit such crimes. Well, Yahweh Shai said, John verse 10 and 10, chapter 10, verse 10, it says, the thief cometh not but to steal, kill, and destroy. All right? He says, but I come that you may have life and have it more abundantly, roughly paraphrasing. And so um, there are actions that could have been taken, and if you're of a righteous mind, of righteous heart, you would take said actions, um, before acting completely on violence. So again, it's just one of those things that all the information comes out. Um, it'll be um, it'll come out. The Lord will bring it out as needed. But it says voluntary, intentional killing or conscious disregard for life. Because again, the first thing in the first article it made the sole mention of standing your ground. So that was like the first thing that was even thought of. Like, oh, I was standing. It was probably like I'm standing my ground. You know. But anyway, I looked up kill. Because there was a scripture here, says Exodus 20:13. It says, "Thou shalt not kill." Now there are reasons that would be justified if you had to protect yourself from a threat. You know, um, there was war, or things that was coming upon you. But then you have, when you look into that kill, it goes into murder. Thou shalt not murder, slay, kill, right? To, to murder, to slay, and it says premeditate, all right? And then it's got accidental or avenger, all right? So, how we should move, like I said, if all possible, we should move peaceably and be peaceably with all men. And we can speak on it now because it comes out that they were cleaners, going, and they just so happened to come to the wrong home. But as I mentioned in the previous video, um, it could have been a DoorDash worker, could have been, it could have been, um, UPS, FedEx driver, postal service worker, coming to contractors for deliveries, coming to man's home. So the Lord had brought this, and He made it national news, and so we're gonna see how it may turn out. But again, I hope that the lesson, is edifying, that you got something out of it. And Salaki for the rambling, gathering my thoughts through the spirit of Yahweh Shai. but I hope that you receive something from this. So I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the whole crew elect.